If you want to do business between Argentina and Alaska, Houston is geographically the best place. We're really 50 individual countries that cooperate on some things and don't on others. And companies can make benefit from that because it simply gives them more choice. Already back in 2018, 2019, we were seeing companies starting to reshore. So companies sometimes are faced with supply chain challenges because
Jeffrey Blair is the Senior Director, Europe, Middle East, and Africa at Greater Houston Partnership. He specializes in international economic development and business attraction, helping companies across Europe, the Middle East, and Africa explore investment opportunities and connect with regional partners to support relocation and expansion into the Greater Houston region.
the emotional part is, are we going to feel at home here? That is very, very important. We try to help them save time and aggravation, which ends up also saving money. How much more advances are we going to make in that area? We're still going to be that home of energy.
If someone is on the fence about moving to Houston, what is something that you would say they're probably underestimating?
One of the biggest reasons we hear why people are hesitating towards Houston is that
when a chemical company decides it's time to expand into the United States, there's a short list of American cities that are in the conversation. And Houston is almost always at the top. That's because Houston has a network built over decades specifically to support the kind of heavy industry most cities don't want. But landing in Houston isn't as simple as picking a site on a map. Instead, it requires a lot of time and effort to build connections and prepare for your first product shipments. Pull up a chair. Let's talk about it. On today's episode, we are talking about what draws global companies to Houston and what happens once they get here. If you're a chemical manufacturer and you are weighing US expansion, the decision involves a multitude of factors, including permitting, supply chain risk, workforce, and your logistics infrastructure, to name a few. Jeffrey Blair, my guest on today's episode, is the Senior Director for Europe, the Middle East, and Africa at the Greater Houston Partnership. His job is to promote Houston and answering calls from international companies, considering Houston and fielding their questions to help them understand what makes the city different. He gives briefings to powerful people from around the world on Houston's global economy, and I can't wait to dive into this conversation. Welcome to Talk About It, Jeffrey. Let's get into it.
Thank you, Alex. Appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Thank you for taking time out of your very busy schedule. Really glad that we found the time, where you're actually in Houston. Jeffrey, you have talked to companies from Europe, the Middle East, and all over the area. When Houston comes up, what are you actually telling them? Like, what's the real reason Houston is keeping wind?
In particular, if they were in the energy industry, chemical industry, Houston already has a great reputation as being the city of energy and a chemical hub, but they may not know much more than that, than just the buzzword. Houston is the gateway to the Americas, and that's for goods coming in and goods going out. It's multimodal capabilities, blessed with an excellent geographic location, infrastructure that TALKE knows a whole lot about. It really is world-class. And sometimes when people think of a place, they immediately associate it with something from their past. So if they know Houston from chemicals or from energy or from the medical center or have you, then that's all they will know. And what I try to do is to tell the all-encompassing story, right? But we need to have very good specific information for that industry in order to help them. So besides the promotion, we also help make the connections. And when we know who's here, we can also use those companies to promote ourselves to other companies.
Yeah, thank you for that insight. Houston has always been the energy hub in the past, right? But that has changed over the last 10 years, I would say. What exactly is Houston today?
Houston is the energy capital of the world, and that's not just traditional energy. Over the last 10 years, we've seen enormous growth in wind and in solar. And now we also have nuclear coming back into the fold. Also, energy itself has changed with different fuels and different methods and the stress on decarbonization at the same time meeting our energy goals. So actually, the role of Houston has only grown, not reduced, as the city of energy. It used to be where the people just thought oil and gas, but it's much more.
Once a company decides, all right, we are going to Houston, what is something that you would say is catching them typically off guard?
A lot of times when companies, a decision to locate has logical and, say, emotional factors, right? The logical factor is, do I have a market? Is there infrastructure? Is there feasible location? Will I have the workforce? What are the costs involved? And the emotional part is, are we going to feel at home here? Are we going to feel comfortable here? We'll be able to grow in the way that we foresee growing. Is there support? Is there a cluster? And that's an advantage that Houston has because of really its economies of scale. There are other places that you can see as, say, energy clusters or chemical clusters to a certain extent, but Houston has that on a much larger scale. And companies can make benefit from that because it simply gives them more choice. But that feeling of this is our place, this is going to be our new home, that is very, very important. And you can do that by how I do that, as I try to connect them as quickly as possible with other companies or organizations that have gone through what they've gone through. For example, we're blessed with a large international chamber network here. For German companies, I introduce them to the German chamber, French, the French chamber, et cetera, because they also hear those positive things as well coming from their countrymen. And that reinforces that emotional well-being that you need in order to make that decision.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can just attest to that. You're great with introducing companies to contacts here and really helping, to set up shop. On the permitting side, that is typically something, there's some hesitance in companies, right? Because it is, let's say, a new territory, moving to a different country. And especially for companies from Europe, moving into the US context. How do you support this process, then introducing companies to, let's say, the legal requirements here, making sure that they're comfortable with arranging themselves in the legal context?
Right. Well, besides the role of promotion that the Greater Houston Partnership has for promoting Greater Houston as a global city for our key industries, we also provide services free of charge and helping identify real estate, make key introductions to government figures or business connections, but also in helping companies understand the permitting process, where they need to go, and who they need to go to get those permits. And if we can't find that answer ourselves through that, then we help find them people that can. Because it's all about moving, being able to move that company forward, right? So that they understand if I'm going to put a facility here, it's going to take 9 months to get an air permit, or 18 months, or this is what a water permit is going to look like. And that can be at the county level and it can be at the state level. And the partnership as that regional economic development agency for the 12 counties around the city of Houston and Port Houston, we have those connections. So we're a great facilitator of those contacts. Some companies need a little bit more hand-holding than others, and if they need that hand-holding, that's fine. We're happy to do that. And some just want a telephone number and an email address. So whatever they want, they can do. And they may even say, we want a consultant to help us guide through that. And there's a number of them, particularly on this side of Houston, that can help do that.
Yeah, you just mentioned the partnership a couple of times. Probably a lot of our viewers don't know what the partnership is. Can you introduce the partnership a little bit more in detail?
Sure. So the Greater Houston Partnership has been in existence since 1989, and before that, you had the original Houston Chamber of Commerce, which was founded in 1840, the same year that the city of Houston was founded. You had the World Trade Center Houston, so accredited by the World Trade Center Association. And you had the Economic Development Advisory Council, which was made up of the government entities, cities, counties, example, that were responsible for keeping employment numbers constant or growing them through promoting the city to get people to move here. 1989, they put that all underneath one roof, and working in partnership, the Greater Houston Partnership was formed. So we have certain services like a Chamber of Commerce. We're funded by the Houston business community to serve the Houston business community, Greater Houston business community. But we also do that promotion on the economic development side and the facilitation for new investments. And we also facilitate trade. So we have about 120 to 130 inbound delegations every year. Sometimes it's just for information. Sometimes it's companies looking for companies to resell their products or to warehouse their products. We organize outbound delegations and inbound delegations focused around increasing investment and trade.
That's awesome. Maybe question in between. You just mentioned outbound delegation.
Right.
I heard recently there was an outbound delegation promoting Houston in the context of FIFA 26.
That was, I have to say, in the 13 years I've been at the partnership, that was my favorite one because I love soccer or football. So Houston has 7 matches it's hosting, third most of any other city. So it's New York, Dallas, and Houston. So Texas collectively are hosting more games than any other state in the U.S. And in the week between the 14th of June and the 20th of June, we have Germany playing Curacao on the 14th, Portugal playing DR Congo on the 17th, and then the Netherlands playing Sweden on the 20th. So together with the World Cup Committee of Houston First, which is responsible for the tourism, and Judge Nina Hidalgo from Harris County, and some of our members, we actually went in 1 week's time to Germany, to Portugal, and to the Netherlands, to the football associations there, to do a promotion for come to Houston, come see those games, but also see about your business expansion.
Mm-hmm.
So I got to go to the home of football of all 3 of those countries, and it was really exciting for me. So I normally don't walk around organizing delegations and things like that can be quite stressful, but I walked around for a week with a big smile on my face.
Yeah, absolutely can relate to that. I think there's a lot of excitement ahead of us here in Houston. Let's switch back to the business development side of things. So sometimes, there's deals in the making, and they are getting to a tipping point, where you think, okay, that's about to fall apart. How often do problems like that arise, and how are you helping, to get things back on track?
Everything begins and ends with communication. So if a company can get in contact with us as soon as possible, the better chances that there won't be problems down the line. And the reason why I say that is then there are certain things that all companies need. They need information about regulation. They need information about costs, about real estate, whether they're just going to rent something or they're going to build something, but also about the regulations, right? The steps that you have to take in order to get registered or certified in order to operate. And a lot of companies come in already with the idea, this is the way we did it back home, so we're going to do it this way here. And that's where they end up making a misstep. Often, though, that's after the fact. That's when they're contacting us at a bit of a panic. So I've been doing this now for 33 years on both sides of the Atlantic. So I think I've probably seen just about every kind of mistake a company could make. But most of the time is thinking that, oh, this is the way we've done it here before. We're just going to do it here. That's an unnecessary step, or that's too costly. We're just going to do it this way. So the earliest that they can get in contact with us, where we can simply explain, this is where you need to go, we try to help them save time and aggravation, which ends up also saving money. So I would say just having the mindset, this is the way we did it here, so we're going to do it. Because even within the United States now, we're really 50 individual countries that cooperate on some things and don't on others. So how they did things in Texas could be different than the way they did in Washington State or in Iowa or Mississippi, etc. So it begins and ends with communication. If they let us know what they're doing and what they're looking for, we can help them make less missteps. There's always going to be missteps. It's an imperfect process, right? Yeah. And that's where that communication is, when they feel like, oh, they have our best interest at heart, right? Because we want them to be a part of the Greater Houston family, because we don't just talk to companies, just any companies coming in. These are companies that are identified, they're going to support our key industries. So we want them to grow, because again, we're paid by the Houston business community to help grow the business community. So
yeah, thank you for that insight.
Now let's talk a little bit about a different topic, right? So geopolitics nowadays, have again gained more attention, and along with that, the topic of supply chain risk is, I would say, omnipresent. So you're responsible for quite a large geographical area. And I would be interested, what are you hearing out there? Is there more focus on supply chain risks, of companies that moving to use them? Is there more focus on that area?
There is, but I'd like to start by saying that already back in 2018, 2019, we were seeing companies starting to reshore activities already, even before they say the current upheavals in the Middle East and pre-COVID and things like this. Companies were already thinking about shortening or, say, refining their supply chain, simply because, and as TALKE knows, getting a client is great. Keeping a client is great, but much harder, because once you have that client, they're always going to want it faster and faster and better and better. So companies sometimes are faced with supply chain challenges, because if a weather event happens or geopolitical upheaval happens, things like that, it can greatly impact it. So companies started thinking more, particularly in the energy industry, about shortening those lines. Now what we're seeing, particularly under the second Trump presidency, with what he's been doing around tariffs and the disruption now in the Middle East with Iran, is that companies are deciding, well, we're going to become an American company. We're going to do as much manufacturing and the like as we can from the United States, and just rethink how they structure. Recently, we had a company in renewable energy that decided, instead of having a factory in Europe and a factory in Asia, they were also going to have a factory in the United States. Mm-hmm. And then those factories were going to be responsible for those geographic areas. So they wouldn't have to, the United States wouldn't have to be reliant on equipment coming from both sides, from either coast, because there's too much risk involved. So we're seeing a lot of companies do that, which is a boon for our growth. And I'm just a little bit, it's not an easy feeling when you see all this going on, all the upheaval, and there is a certain amount of economic benefit, but at the same time, we've had companies say, we're not going to come here at this time, because there's too many unknown factors right now. But the ones that have decided to say, the ones that already had at the near point of investment, who said, we're going ahead, we're going to accelerate that. Or even we're going to expand what we have in the United States to cover more markets from the U.S., because then there are benefits as being known as a U.S. manufacturer. So we've seen it from both sides. Yeah.
Absolutely. That's actually a great segue into the next question. So once a company is thinking about moving to Houston, how early do you think they're looking into the logistics aspect? Is that a day one consideration? Or is something like that coming at the later stage in a project like that?
Well, they certainly should be, because that's one of the main benefits for Houston. Now, there are companies that come here, they have to come here because their clients are here and they have to service their clients. Yeah. Well, there are others that things like they're looking for a place to service their clients in a much wider area, say coast to coast. Then, as I always say, the root word of logistics is logic. What is the most logical place to locate? It's in the middle, where you can service coast to coast, north to south, most effectively. So they should be thinking about that, whether it's for a sales office, for a logistical operation, or manufacturing. you get benefits from that geographic location for all three, right? So for sales, being in contact with companies, equal distance between each coast, logistics, as we mentioned, the cost, but also for manufacturing, because once you make it, it has to get to where it needs to go. And then the logistics comes in mind. But also for sourcing materials that you don't have or need, if you're in an area where it's also, say, the shortest possible line, that also makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
So they should be thinking about it from the very beginning. That's not always the case. I try in a nice subtle way to bring that up, because my very first slide on the presentation that you spoke about, the briefing that I give, is a big map of the Western Hemisphere.
Yeah.
And where Houston is and all the connections. I said, so, and that's sort of my first tagline is, if you want to do business between Argentina and Alaska, Houston is geographically the best place to be located.
Absolutely.
No, that's a very good slide to see the geographic advantage. You spoke about sourcing raw materials. Do you think it is an advantage for companies to move here because also they can easily source logistic services?
Yes, absolutely. Again, we had the benefit of being a large cluster in key industries. So you're going to have those supporting factors: transportation, warehousing, handling, the value add that gets done. But it's not just for raw materials. It can be for semi-finished products. It can be for key components, and then they're just going to do the assembly, testing, and distribution from here. So because we have such a large footprint, something that one of my colleagues mentioned, and he said he heard it from somebody else, is that Houston is, or Greater Houston, is a key region in the world. If from one day to the next, Greater Houston didn't exist, people would feel it all around the world. People would feel for their jet fuels, their plastic products. It would be felt all around the world. There are some cities that if they were here today, gone tomorrow, many people would notice. But Houston is a critical, it's a critical economy. It's a critical location. So, and it's simply because we took something. We were blessed with an excellent geographic location, of course, blessed with natural resources, but we had the will to improve upon them. And from there, that's what you get the economy today.
Well, let's explore the very different topic, artificial intelligence. That's obviously, regardless where you go nowadays, conferences, trade shows, everybody is talking about AI. I'm interested in your 2 cents. Are companies nowadays really diving into AI here in the Houston area, or is it something that is, let's say, monitored from the sidelines? What do you hear out there?
No, it's very much on people's minds and on different levels. Let's start with the most basic level. We're building AI servers in Houston now. A lot of people don't know that, but Compact Computers was actually, it's a Houston company before it was bought by Hewlett-Packard Enterprises. And so we already manufacture a great deal of computer components and things like that here. But through Foxconn here, a great third-party electronics manufacturer, they have now the contracts for not only Apple, but also for NVIDIA. And now I'm told there's some other deals. I'm not going to step on the toes of my colleague, the director for Asia. That'll come out later. But we're building the hardware around it already. And then when you talk about the software part of it, because AI is software, right? It's being embraced because how I see it, again, this is just my opinion, it's just the natural progression of software, right? Software is continually looking to be improved because it improves the hardware, right? Or the calculations that you need in order to use hardware more effectively, okay? It's, for me, just a natural progression, and people that are afraid of it, I think, don't really understand it. But then I don't want to act like I'm telling people how they need to think about it. For me, it's just a natural progression of it. You take a software, you improve upon its processing capabilities, because it makes hardware more effective, and also can help improve decision making by people, by making much faster calculations and things like that for the analysis of data. The generation of data is an easy thing. the analysis of data and the application of it is not. And I think that's where AI is going to be a big boon to everybody. I will go, though, and say that personally, I don't use it except for on my Google search. They haven't developed an AI program yet that can do what I do. So I guess for maybe for the next 5 or 6 years until I retire, I'll be safe. But who knows?
Well, thank you for your 2 cents on AI.
That might have been 3. That might have been 3.
All right, let's dive into the question, what's next for Houston? So if you look ahead 5 to 10 years, what is starting to show up now where you would think people need to pay attention to moving forward?
So I'm going to address this for the people who would be looking from the outside in and not so much from the inside out, because that's how I try to explain Houston to people. Is that they know us for energy, they may know us for NASA, but and I talked about AI but also the hardware, computer hardware that we make in there. They don't really know that about us. But I would say the 2 of the key ones is life science healthcare and aerospace, not what they do around mission control and the training, but we're also manufacturing a lot more in those areas. Now we're blessed with the Texas Medical Center, the #1 medical cluster in the world, but also we have companies moving here to actually make drugs and medical apparatuses to help, not just here in the Texas Medical Center, but all around the world, all around the U.S. And that's something that we didn't have before. So it's like an extension of the TMC, which started it, and it's grown so much more, just like when we had the port and it grew so much more, and with oil and gas, and it's grown now to include solar and wind and all these other things. And now as well as with NASA. So yes, we had a Johnson Space Center, we had a mission control, all of the training for the astronauts. So manned space missions, that's where that all happens. But now we're actually building the hardware as well. And we're building the hardware right next to where the astronauts are being trained to use that equipment. And with the recent formation of the Texas Space Commission through the state of Texas, we now have Exploration Park right outside the gates there in Johnson Space Center, where they're recreating the surface of the moon and the surface of Mars. So the companies that are developing that technology for them to live and move around those environments, they can do that right next door to the people that are being trained to use it. So it's in the next 10 or 20 years, how much more advances are we going to make in that area? But we're still going to be that home of energy, that energy capital of the world. But energy, like even from 10 years ago, has changed. It's going to continue to change as well. And so will all of those other areas. Logistics is going to continue to advance. And TALKE, I know I've made that mention about TALKE a few times. You guys are always looking to innovate. And that's, when companies come to a new location, they're really looking ways to exploit the market in the best possible way. And companies that innovate grow and prosper, right? Because they take advantage of that new market. So definitely the place to do it.
Absolutely. Sounds like a great environment in Houston. And that's leading into the next question. If someone is on the fence about moving to Houston, what is something that you would say they're probably underestimating?
One of the biggest reasons we hear why people are hesitating towards Houston is they hear about the summer weather. It's hot, it's humid, there's hurricanes, there's all these other things. So I'm like, do your homework. First of all, come here. If you're here, we're already 50% home. Once you come here and you look around, right? But, because yes, it's hot and it's humid here for a few months during the year, but the rest of the time we have excellent weather. You're always going to have storms when you're on any coast, anywhere in the world. We always bounce back and get smarter and more resilient than ever. And we're making a big resilience push right now, as a matter of fact, at the partnership. We just had our first big resilience meeting earlier this week. And something that we have to deal with, right? But still people are moving here for the economic opportunities. And I say, just do your homework. Don't go by what other people say, because when people talk about a place, it's almost always tied to some sort of negative opinion or one negative experience that they had, or they may just simply be repeating what other people have said. come here, talk to people, move around, talk to companies, talk to people in restaurants, talk, wherever. And then you'll decide. Because I'm not saying that Texas is the best place for business, because I may not know your business. You may be better someplace else, but you won't know until you ask questions. And come with an open mind. Also ask yourself, all these people that you've heard something negative about, look at how many companies are moving here. There's a reason. And once you get here, a lot of people stay. And there's reasons for that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you very much, Jeffrey. That's going to do it for this conversation. Really appreciate your insight from a global perspective on why companies are going to keep on choosing the Houston. If somebody would like to learn more about the Greater Houston Partnership or connect to your team, where do they need to go?
Certainly. Well, they can always go to our website, which is a very easy website address. It's www.houston.org. And that'll bring you to the Great Houston Partnership page. And you can click on the economic development link, and it'll have all of the team members on there. And my email and telephone is listed in there. But if you don't want to go that far, you just want to, it's a great place just to do some research as well, because we have a lot of our publications on there, imports and exports. We have an expat guide that we publish. We have an employment report. We have one-pagers on our key industries. There's information there about taxes and incentives, about employment, everything that you'll need to know. And if you need, even if it's just a contact to help get to the next contact, please contact me. I'm happy to help. Awesome. I'm a paid-for resource. I'm already paid for by the Great Houston Partnership, so, I'm going to get paid regardless one way or the other, so please do.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Jeffrey. Really appreciate taking the time out of your busy schedule to spend some time with me today. That was a really great conversation.
Let it play. Thank you very much.
If you're in Baytown, we'd love to connect in person. Reach out at info.talke.com/podcast to set that up. If you're not in Baytown, we put together something special for you. We have developed a free visibility checklist with 10 questions to ask any logistics provider before you sign. It takes about 5 minutes, and it will tell you real quick whether your current partner can actually see what's happening with your shipments. Anyone can download it for free now at info.talke.com/podcast. Until next time, I'm your host, Alexander Boehm. Thanks for joining the Talk About Podcast.